What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Upper Hand Fantasy Podcast. This is Faraz Siddiqui. I'm here with Zach. Quarterback rankings, running back rankings. I'm going to say it every episode. We're going into the home stretch of the fantasy football season. So make sure you listen to the entire episode. We have a bunch of nuggets for you when it comes to these quarterbacks and running backs for this week. We got a lot of our running backs back. We had 6 teams on bye last week, so bye Mageddon is over. So now we're getting more full strength, going into this week. Zach, how you doing, man?
No, I'm doing good. You're right again, like you said. Much more reasonable amount of teams on bye this week. I forget. I think it's is it 2 teams on bye this week? I think it's Patriots.
It's just 2 teams this week. Yeah,
the Bengals. Those 2, right? I think that's it. So you shouldn't have any trouble, with buys, but injuries can still be a problem, but it won't be compounded this week like it's been in the past.
We have 4 teams on bye this week: Ravens, Bengals,
Ravens,
Patriots, and the Jets. Forget about those guys.
How did you not know that your Jets were on bye?
I don't know. Maybe I was just like calm.
Go.
I there was no way that they could lose this week. Like they can actually like go have another week. Sitting at 6 and what are they? 6-3.
6-3, yeah.
Amazing.
Suddenly the AFC
division leading. Close to it. The Bills. You never know if the Bills loses. If Josh Allen is out this week, the Bills take the L. We're gonna be on top of the AFC East with that better division record.
Yep.
So just saying. Okay. We got some news for you before we get into the Thursday night preview, and then before we get into the quarterback rankings. But a couple things. Christian Watson apparently did not have a concussion after he was taken out the game, similar to the Amon-Ra situation. However, Christian Watson did practice in full on Wednesday, which is a very good sign that he's going to play this week. I'd pick him up given Romeo Doubs' injury. That's going to keep him out potentially for the rest of the year. There's some upside there. Aaron Rodgers is looking for a receiver. Allen Lazard has been pretty solid all year long, and he'll continue to be solid. But, Sammy Watkins, you can't really depend on him. Christian Watson, whenever he's got an opportunity in the handful of snaps that he's gotten over the last 2 weeks, Aaron Rodgers is looking for him. So, we'll see what ends up happening moving forward with that offense. But I think Christian Watson, even this week, he's a flex play, like a boom bust flex play, even against Dallas.
Yeah.
Let's see. Aaron Jones, he got a limited practice in, so that's a good sign for him. I expect him to be, to potentially be a little more limited than usual. Given the fact that he just twisted that ankle last week, he was in the walking boot, and he'll likely play. The injury, it doesn't seem to be serious, but it's possible that AJ Dillon's given a few more carries this week.
Yeah.
Deebo Samuel practicing full on Wednesday. That's a good sign that he'll be back this week. Deion Jackson not practicing. Colts running back Deion Jackson because of that neon injury.
Neon for Deion. Yeah.
Neon Deion. He has a knee injury. He hyperextended it. I think that was what the injury is.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Taylor did return to a limited practice on Wednesday. That's a good sign for him returning this week. I did not see that coming at all. So the fact that he's practicing on a Wednesday is a good sign for him to play this week. Matthew Stafford is in the concussion protocol, which is not good.
Yeah.
I think he was placed in it yesterday. Apparently, he might have seen symptoms late, after that game. So the fact that he was put in the concussion protocol, like on a Wednesday or whatever it was, that's not great. And he might not play this week.
Yeah. I wouldn't count too much on him playing this week. I mean, obviously, he probably hasn't been in your lineup for the past 4 or 5 weeks.
What about Cooper Kupp, bro?
Yeah, okay. Cooper Kupp.
What are you doing, Cooper Kupp, bro?
Yeah, Matthew Stafford hasn't been in your lineup. I think Cooper Kupp can get it done with whoever's our quarterback. I think
who is their quarterback? Who is their backup?
Is it the Wolford guy? I forget.
The Wolford guy. The Wolf.
The Wolford guy. I think that's who they have.
John Wolford.
Yeah. Is that who it is?
Yeah. It is.
All right. Yeah. So we saw a little bit of
size. Do we have a sample size, John Wolford with Cooper Kupp?
I don't know. I think he started like 2 games prior to the Rams adding Matthew Stafford. But
did he play? I'm looking at his game log from last year.
I think it was the year
all
before.
last year.
It was the year before.
Oh, was it?
I think it was
Okay, so then
2020 that he
we
played
might
a
not
couple
be able
games.
to get too much out of it.
No,
Either
he
way,
played one game. Yeah, against Arizona at the end of the year.
Okay, you're playing Cooper Kupp regardless, but not ideal for him. But either way, Matthew Stafford. But fire up Saints defense though, huh?
Yeah,
fire them up. Either way, fire them up, even with Stafford there. Alvin Kamara's court date has been pushed back yet again to January, so it doesn't look like this is going to be an issue for this season. The video came out last week. Nothing happened. Nothing seemed like it's going to happen. I think if you have Kamara, I wouldn't be worried.
Yeah.
The other thing to add here, Treylon Burks, he might be back this week. He's still, I think they brought him back. He practiced this week, and he said himself that the plan is for him to play this week, but they're still going to see, if he's ready, and he's going to see how the week goes. So, another perspective add to your bench if you need it.
Yeah. We talked about him a little bit, before he went down with the injury. We said that the numbers were kind of there. He just wasn't producing. But, I mean, I'm not sure how much of an upside he has at this point, just because the Titans offense, they're not throwing the ball hardly at all. I mean, obviously with Malik Willis starting, they're not going to do that. They're just going to turn around and hand it to Derrick Henry. But if Ryan Tannehill comes back, he could have some value because there hasn't been anybody, standing out at wide receiver for the Titans. And if they're going to throw it to somebody, he's probably the most talented guy. We talked about his yards after catch ability pretty much while he was playing. And he's just kind of fallen off the radar. He's definitely on waivers because nobody was holding him because he wasn't producing very well even when he was healthy.
Definitely. All right, let's get into the quarterback rankings. Let's get into Thursday Night Football preview. Let's do that first.
All right.
Wilkins and the Panthers. Chuba Hubbard, he practiced in full a couple times this week already, which means that he's going to be listed as questionable for tonight. But after 2 full practices, he's probably going to play. So I would assume that he we're going to go over the quarterback rankings in a little bit, and we'll see where D'Onta Foreman is. I have him ranked as an RB2 this week, on the lower end of the RB2 spectrum. And we'll talk more about him when we get into the rankings later in this episode. But I would say he's a low end RB2 start. I think Chuba Hubbard also, should be in that, maybe borderline top 30 running backs, something like that. Where you can potentially play him. If the Panthers end up going down in this game early, then Chuba Hubbard's going to be on the field more than D'Onta Foreman. All right. Let's see what else. As far as the Panthers wide receivers go, PJ Walker's going to get the start tonight, right? And he's been throwing more catchable balls, and he has been, targeting these wide receivers, DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall. Now, he looked terrible last week, right?
Yeah.
And, he was pulled after you just looking lost out there in the first half. Baker Mayfield came in. Baker Mayfield had the best half of his life. And now they're going back to PJ Walker. And I'm happy about that when it comes to DJ Moore, because DJ Moore's target share went way up after after PJ Walker came in. And this is a much better matchup. This is a really, really good matchup for both DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall. So DJ Moore, he's a solid wide receiver 2 for me this week. Terrace Marshall is like a low-end wide receiver 3 with a little bit of upside because of the matchup. If this was not a cake matchup, I wouldn't necessarily, feel super comfortable starting Terrace Marshall. But, he's had 2 solid games in a row. He was kind of quarterback independent because it was Baker who ended up throwing him the touchdown last week. But we talked about him, at length in the waiver wire show a couple days ago on Tuesday, why we like him. And, it makes sense, to roster him if he's still available, because he could potentially do some things tonight against a bad Atlanta defense.
Yeah, I love how the standard that we're now holding Panthers quarterbacks to is just, can they throw catchable passes? And, are the receivers being targeted? That's what we've kind of been reduced to with the way that PJ Walker and Baker Mayfield have been playing. I'm okay. Like you said, this is a good matchup starting DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall tonight. Terrace Marshall, not so much as DJ Moore. But the thing is, if one of the quarterbacks, whoever's starting, it looks like it's going to be PJ Walker starting. If he doesn't play well, you can always have hope that they're going to switch a quarterback, and that quarterback change will, spur on some production. That's what we have. You're not going to be stuck with one bad quarterback the whole game. I don't think. If it's going poorly, they'll make that switch as it did last week. And actually,
that's very true. We might be stuck with 2 bad quarterbacks.
Right. So you have two bad quarterbacks, but that's what I'm saying. So like if it gets out of hand, it's not just going to be them getting drubbed, and they're just going to keep the same quarterback in. They're going to put somebody else in, and maybe they'll add a little spark. That the receivers will be able to do something a little bit more. I think they're going to have a just fine go of it. They did well. The Panthers played well against Atlanta 2 weeks ago. And they're at home this time. I don't think this is going to be a bad game, but I'm tempering expectations for them. I think a touchdown pass is pretty much the ceiling tonight for the quarterback on the Panthers side, PJ Walker and DJ Moore and Terrace Marshall. I think only one of them is going to get a touchdown if they do.
I like Marcus Mariota tonight against the Panthers. He played very well against them the first go around. So I'm fine starting him. And we'll take a look at where he's ranked. Might be higher than a lot of you guys think for this week. I have him as a low end QB1, pretty much a borderline QB1. Outside of that, Cordell Patterson, I would start him, and you will see where he's ranked as well. I have him ranked as an RB2, low end RB2. We'll see exactly where he's ranked. I think he's around RB20, RB18, something like that. And I think him and Tyler Algier will likely form like a 1-2 combination, right? Like Caleb Huntley was kind of involved last week as well. I think with Cordell Patterson getting healthier, I think this ends up being a little bit less distributed, right, between three guys, and maybe two guys, getting the touches out of the backfield, and then with Cordell Patterson kind of getting those, being that 1A in this backfield. And I think this is a good matchup too, because Carolina did not look good last week.
No, Carolina didn't look good last week. And that's what the Falcons have going for them, because they have a defense that's coming off a bad performance, and it's not much time of rest, not much prep for them playing on Thursday. I like Cordell Patterson tonight. I think he's going to be good. He has the potential to finish as an RB1, but I think RB2 is right about where I'd have him ranked as well. I'd have him like in the middle. He looked good. And the thing that was encouraging me was that he got the touches that he needed. He got the money touches, what I call them, down the goal line, in the red zone, that kind of thing. He was getting the touchdown carries. Tyler Algier, though, I wouldn't sleep on him. He can have some nice value even with Cordell Patterson starting, because we saw how explosive he is. He can catch the ball and he can run the ball. So I think that they're going to be happy to use both of these guys tonight. I don't think that Tyler Algier is going to kind of get, phased out because Cordell Patterson's playing. Patterson's very good, and the Falcons obviously like him, but Tyler Algier, he's going to have a role. I think above any of the other guys. I think Tyler Algier is head and shoulders above Caleb Huntley and Avery Williams, in talent. I don't think they're going to be putting them in over Tyler Algier in like long distance. If they get to those 2nd and 15, I think we could 3rd and 15. I think we could see Tyler Algier putting in some work, in the passing game, just catching out of the backfield, running some screens.
Agreed. He did have that role last week, even with Patterson back.
Yeah.
In terms of the Falcons passing game, not really interested. In Kyle Pitts or
that about sums it up.
The thing is with Drake London has a great match. This is a great matchup for Drake London.
Yeah.
However, very hard to trust. Okay. So you want to start him, as a flex play, not in your flex, but in your wide receiver spot, because you don't want to start Thursday night players in your flex, because you become less flexible going into Sunday. But if you have another option, I wouldn't bother here. Also, Kyle Pitts, I think he's the low end tight end 1. You could start him, if you don't have any other options, but I'm looking for another option if I can.
I mean, he's had a couple good weeks, and it's not as bleak as it was at the beginning of the season. I think you could start him. I don't think he's a bottom tier tight end like he was at the beginning of the season. But the thing is, for me, I don't know if you saw this, but Marcus Mariota actually came out. He was quoted. He says, "I think I could get Kyle Pitts more opportunities with the ball." I think it was just this week. He said something like that. So
he did.
I don't want to hold out hope. We hear that a lot. Oh, we need to get so-and-so more touches. I think Zach Wilson said that he wants to get Elijah Moore more touches. I think I heard something like that around somewhere. And then the same thing happened. Dan Campbell said about DeAndre Swift. Oh, we want to get him more touches. Yeah, you could say it. You could walk. You could talk the talk, but you got to walk the walk. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but maybe that's a little bit encouraging for Kyle Pitts owners if you want to start him tonight. I think he could do well, but as we know, his floor is very, very low, and his upside isn't that high. At this point, obviously, it's not a talent thing. It's just his usage. He doesn't get many targets. And Marcus Mariota, even though he has given Kyle Pitts a few good weeks, that overthrow on that, like what would have been a 70-yard touchdown last week, just kind of sums up, what's keeping Kyle Pitts from doing his thing. And it's just his usage.
Yeah.
And when he does get targets, they're not necessarily high quality.
100%, man. So, if you like a lot of these plays, there's going to be a lot of different types of props on Underdog tonight. Like I would take a look at all the higher lowers on Underdog, all the pick'ems on Underdog tonight. There's a lot of players in this game, right? So you're gonna have a lot to choose from. So if you go over to UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog Fantasy app, and use the code Upper Hand, you'll double your first deposit up to $100. You're going to be able to potentially 20x your money for these entries. If you get five of them right. So like I can choose Chuba over his fantasy points. I could choose Deontay Foreman to go over, his rushing line for the night. Things like that. And if you get 5 of those right, you'll end up 20xing your money for that entry. And you can decide whether you want to do 3 picks in one entry, 4 picks in one entry, 5 picks in one entry, and depending on how many you choose, the multiplier goes up. Right. So take a look at that. It's fun. I don't know how good tonight's game is going to be, but this is definitely going to add some excitement to it for you if you plan on watching the game. So go to UnderdogFantasy.com, download the app, and use code Upper Hand to double your first deposit up to $100. All right.
Yeah,
Let's go ahead and get into go ahead.
The main reason I'm tuning in tonight would be to see the Panthers black helmets. That's pretty much the reason I'm watching. They're wearing those tonight. They're going to look sick, dude. I love it.
It's going to look sick. Yeah, 100%. Quarterback rankings. Let's do it. Despite Josh Allen's injury to his elbow, I still have him at number 1. Yeah. Because I like the matchup.
Yeah.
We don't know if he's going to play.
You can love the matchup. Yeah, you can like the matchup for anybody Josh Allen plays against because he's Josh Allen. As long as he's playing, you start him.
True. I mean, I can. If he wasn't hurt, I can see him dropping like 45 fantasy points on the Vikings.
Maybe,
but he's a little bit banged up. He might not play this week. It's possible that they hold him out 1 week. We'll likely find out if he's playing on Friday. He didn't practice on Wednesday. My guess is that he's going to be out this week. That's just a guess, though. But if he does play, he's definitely going to be in my lineup. I'm not getting cute with it at all.
Yeah,
start him.
Yeah, don't ever start. Like even if you have, like you don't know, you're not going to have Patrick Mahomes. But if you have anybody else, don't think, oh, if Josh Allen's playing through an injury, just play him. Don't overthink it. Like you said, it doesn't matter who you have. Just play.
What if you're Justin Fields? What if you have Justin Fields?
Zach, no. Okay, I know. We love Justin Fields now. We love him. I know. But Josh Allen's Josh Allen. He's gonna do it. He's good.
We got Patrick Mahomes at 2. He's been on a mission lately, dude. Like he hasn't been that far off of Josh Allen this year in terms of fantasy points. He's only averaging like a little bit more than one less fantasy point per game than Josh Allen. So he's been balling. Like even without Tyreek Hill, we thought that Patrick Mahomes might have taken a step back, but the fantasy points has not suffered. Matter of fact, it has gone up since last year.
Yeah. He looks a lot better. I think he had that slow start last year, and people were wondering if this was Patrick Mahomes, finally coming back down to earth. And that was after he signed that huge contract. I think that was what it was. So it was a little bit of panic for Chiefs fans, but not anymore. He looks very good. And they just brought in a new weapon for him in Kadarius Toney. He looks like Patrick Mahomes still, and that's what he's going to be. The one thing that Patrick Mahomes did last week that he didn't really the rest of the season so far was, run the ball. He ran the ball. I think it was like, didn't he have like 60 yards the other night? Yeah, 60 yards on 6 carries and a rushing touchdown. So that really pumped up his numbers and made him look really good. He produces in a little bit different fashion than Josh Allen, but it was funny. Scrambling remains an underrated part of his skill set. He doesn't use it enough, I don't think. I think he could do more with what he has.
And he's slow. That's the funniest part about it.
He's not that slow. Like I don't want to call him slow.
I'm going to look up what his 40 time was because he looks slow. Like he looks slow, but like he's like he's like
slow. Obviously he's not Kyler Murray, but like he's faster than Dak.
If Dak and Mahomes raced, I am 100% putting money on Dak. His 40-yard dash 4.840 on playerprofile.com. All right, let's see Dak. All right, let's see. I could be wrong. Let's see. 4.79. 4.7940 beat him by 0.01. So Dak Prescott is 0.01 faster than Patrick Mahomes. Boom. Zach, I don't know if Zach can hear me. Mike, is it me or is it Zach? I have no idea. Mike, producer Mike has no idea what's going on. Zach, did you hear me at all?
I heard you about Mahomes. I didn't hear you about Dak.
Okay, so I said that Dak. So Mahomes was at a 4.840.
Yeah.
Dak Prescott is at a 4.7940. So
Okay.
we beat him by
Hey.
0.01. So I told you
Hey,
that Dak
just
Prescott was
watch.
faster.
Just watch. The eye test will tell you differently. I promise. Maybe in his rookie year, Dak could move like that, but Dak doesn't.
You
go
know
like
how
that.
we talk about Kyler Murray, like when he runs, like it's the funniest thing. It looks
Yeah,
like
so-
a toddler running around.
Yeah,
I also laugh when Patrick Mahomes runs too. Like it's not the same, but it's like a
yeah.
different type of run. It's like an unathletic type of run
Is
where
it like
with every step he's thinking about stopping.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Like I don't know. Like I don't know. I had a couple friends who are like that. They say they watch Patrick Mahomes run. They say he looks a little girly when he runs, which I don't know. It could be, but
Hey,
it's
could
very.
be, man.
He doesn't run like a Lamar. You watch Lamar and Justin
No,
Fields. He doesn't run like any other quarterbacks. Obviously,
no.
Kyler Murray runs like Kyler Murray runs like Kyler Murray. Nobody else runs like him, but he doesn't run. He's definitely like looking to dodge any type of contact they can get, and I get it because he is what?
Yes.
How much was it? How much was his contract? I forget what it was. Just like almost.
Oh yeah,
Like
he's a big money man.
Yeah, he's a money man. So you can't risk that. Which makes sense.
No.
You get that. You don't want to lose out on that money that you're getting. So
For
but
sure.
Yeah,
All right.
that was a long conversation on Patrick Mahomes, and we're definitely starting him. So yeah.
Even if he runs like a girl.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts, we have him at 3 against Washington. Good matchup for him.
Yeah.
Nothing really else to say there. Justin Fields at number 4. We had him at 6 last week. Turns out that was way too low, even though we had him higher than most. He has a great matchup against Detroit this week. He's had the most fantasy points among quarterbacks since week 5. And yeah, he's a top 5 quarterback this week.
Absolutely. I'd argue I wouldn't be surprised to see him finish top 3.
Boom. Let me guess, ahead of Josh Allen.
Hey, it's possible if Josh Allen doesn't play, obviously. But even if he does, the matchup, Minnesota, their defense isn't that good, but they're not Detroit. Obviously, the Packers made Detroit look a little bit better than they actually are last week. But Justin Fields is so much different from Aaron Rodgers. The way the Bears are playing is a lot better, coming on a hot streak. I think, even though they lost, I think the past 3 weeks, 2 weeks. Yeah, they lost. They beat the Patriots, and then they lost to Dallas and Miami. But they're coming on a hot streak. Justin Fields looks really good. He's not anything that the Lions have seen yet this season. So I think he's in for another big day, Justin Fields.
Geno Smith at number 5. I like his matchup against Tampa, and I like his wide receivers matchups as well.
Yeah.
So I have him here at 5 ahead of Kyler Murray, who's going up against LA. I would have had Tua ahead of Kyler, who, by the way, I have at 7. I just like the matchup for Kyler better than Tua. However, apparently Kyler Murray has a hamstring injury, right? And he didn't practice because of it on Wednesday. So, if that's a legit injury, and like even if he plays through it, you have to think that it's going to affect his rushing ability.
Yep.
So if that's the case, maybe we have to move Tua ahead of Kyler. But I guess we'll wait and see to see if that injury is legit or not.
Yeah. The thing about Kyler Murray is we've seen him play through injuries before. I forget what it was exactly. I think it was like 2 seasons ago. And he had that quiet finish to the season. He was, on fire to open the season. That's halfway point. He got that injury.
If I'm not mistaken, I think it was a hamstring injury.
I think it was.
Yeah.
So we've seen this kind of thing before, and we know his upside gets capped big time because now he can't move. And I don't want to make fun of Kyler Murray, but when you can't move out from behind that big offensive line and you can't see,
well, you know what?
That's
I don't even know if I don't know with those short strides that he takes. I don't even know if he uses his hamstring.
Yeah, I don't know. We don't want to clown.
I think it's all glutes.
Yeah, we don't want to clown Kyler Murray too much here, but I'm just saying, we've seen it before where he plays through injury and his upside is definitely not what it was. So I think maybe we put Tua over Kyler Murray this week because the matchup is pretty good, I think, for Tua. Even though the Browns defense looked good when they played last against the Bengals, I think that we're looking at, a nice matchup for Tua because it doesn't matter who they play. They have Tyreek Hill, they have Jalen Waddle. The offense looks good. As long as Tua's on point, he's going to be fine. So I think that we could put Tua over Kyler Murray. I think he's a safer bet at this point. And the upside is there because of Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, the upside is there. It is a tough matchup against Cleveland. Cleveland gave Joe Burrow problems in week 8. They gave Lamar big problems in week 7. They gave Justin Herbert problems in week 5. Marcus Mariota had his worst game of the year against them. So I think they're a better defense than we're giving them credit for, especially defending the pass. They're not as great against the run, but defending the pass, they've been pretty good.
Right.
Now, I really like Trevor Lawrence this week. I have him at QB8. The Jaguars are probably going to be throwing the ball a lot against Kansas City this week. A couple of his weapons, right, including Christian Kirk, and whichever one of the Jones brothers happens to line up on the right perimeter on any given play,
Yeah.
they have good individual matchups. And the Chiefs have given up more than 2 passing touchdowns per game to opposing quarterbacks, and they're the only team in the league to be doing that. Now, Preciser has this game at a 53-point total, and the Jaguars, they have the Jaguars losing by 9 points. So I'm expecting Lawrence to have some volume in this game.
Yeah. I think that's totally on point. It makes sense. I don't think the Jaguars really stand a chance against the Chiefs right now, but you don't want to count them out. But I think that the reason that the Chiefs are allowing so many touchdowns is because they go up and then the other team just comes back. It's garbage time. The defense doesn't have to play tough. They'll let the touchdowns go just as long as they take a lot of time getting down there. I think that's the way it's going to be this week too, and that's fine. For fantasy production, that's perfectly fine. And Trevor Lawrence, he's in a good spot. He has good weapons, and Travis Etienne out of the backfield. If he could get him going in the passing game, sky's the limit, really. So I like Trevor Lawrence. I think he finishes more on the low end QB. Like right now, he's like a mid to low QB on these rankings. I think he finishes low end QB1, but I wouldn't be. I'd be kind of disappointed if he didn't finish in the top 12 this week because of the matchup.
I have Dak Prescott at number 9 against Green Bay. Dak showed some willingness to run before the bye, which was awesome. Hopefully we see more of that. Not the easiest matchup against Green Bay. But, a lot of these quarterbacks, and one of the reasons why I have Trevor Lawrence at 8 is because a lot of these quarterbacks in this range have tough matchups. At 10, we have Jimmy G. Solid matchup, okay? But, and I think he's a solid streamer this week, and he has the weapons, and the Chargers are a good matchup. So I'm actually cool with Jimmy G. Now, if you had to choose between Jimmy G and Trevor Lawrence, who you starting? Now, let me ask you a question. Are you starting both Dak Prescott and Jimmy G over Trevor Lawrence?
I think I would. I think I would. The only thing that makes me hesitant about Dak is the Cowboys are a fair weather team. They're going to Lambeau Field, and I think kickoff temperature is like 32. And Dallas does not play well in the cold. So that's one thing that I'm a little bit hesitant about. Maybe I'd put Jimmy G over Dak. I also expect the Cowboys, even though it is going to be cold, I don't think the Cowboys have to worry about being in too close a game. I think Dallas should, by all accounts, be ahead in this game. So they might not be throwing as much, especially with the temperature being that way. It might be a ground and pound game. Tony Pollard could have a big day. Obviously, we just got the reports. That's another thing, a report that maybe I should have brought up earlier. But, Zeke, he's still not sure about playing this week. So we'll see how that goes. I think that Dak is a good start, but Trevor Lawrence might have more upside. I'm talking myself through this right now. So I think, maybe. Yeah, I like these rankings how they are right now. Maybe Jimmy G over Dak. Jimmy G over Dak.
You know that meme with that girl? Like she's like, nah. Nah. That's basically what you're doing through these rankings right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, so I kind of see it. Actually, nah.
I would go Lawrence, Jimmy G, Dak. Just because.
Okay.
I think the game script will be better for Jimmy G. The weather is better for Jimmy G. I think that, will be fun. It'll be good.
That makes sense. That makes sense. My worry with Jimmy G is I think the 49ers handled the Chargers pretty easily this week. They're coming off the bye. All their guys are healthy. I think they go up in that game. Christian McCaffrey has an amazing matchup against them, and the Chargers don't have any weapons. So I'm not sure how much Jimmy G is going to have to throw the ball in this game. That's my only concern. Similar to Dak Prescott, I'm not sure how much he has to throw the ball in this game either.
Right.
But at least Jimmy G has a better matchup than Dak. So maybe you're right. Maybe Jimmy G should go above Dak in this one.
Right.
All right. Let's move on to number 11. We have Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota, like he had a great game against Carolina, like I mentioned last time around. So, and Carolina's defense looked terrible last week against Cincinnati. So I'm cool starting Marcus Mariota as I think this is the highest I've ever had Marcus Mariota. Watch out, because the last time I had Marcus Mariota this high, he shit the bed. So
yeah,
just keep that in mind.
Against Dalton, Cleveland, of all teams, Cleveland. We were just talking about their defense.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but it was a better matchup. It's the better matchup this time around.
Yeah,
I'll say that. I think Andy Dalton bounces back this week against Pittsburgh. This might be a little bit of an aggressive ranking here, but I didn't expect him to do much on Monday night. It was a tough matchup for him. I think this is a much better matchup for Dalton this week. So yeah, he's at 12. He's ahead of Herbert. I just don't trust Herbert right now. Herbert had a cake matchup last week against Atlanta, and it just really comes down to his weapons and the fact that he doesn't have any. Tougher matchup this week for Herbert too against San Francisco, who, by the way, I have 14. I think I just think it's a tough one for him. Now, in terms of Andy Dalton, though, I think one of the reasons why I like him is because Chris Olave has a great matchup this week, and I think he's going to get in the end zone this week. It's been a couple weeks since he's been there. Jarvis Landry, maybe he's back as well. I think that could help out a little bit, having a legit number 2 wide receiver opposite Chris Olave. I think that could help out a little bit. But Andy Dalton, he's got it done before this past week. In a tough matchup, he's got it done for the most part over the past 2 weeks before that. So I think he'll be solid, and I have him ahead of Brady, at 13.
Yeah, I think Andy Dalton was uncharacteristically bad, on Monday night, and that was just an off night for the whole Saints team. I didn't think that the Ravens defense was that good. Obviously, they added Roquan Smith, and it looked like it was actually a decent matchup for the Saints, but that just wasn't the way it turned out. So, you have those types of games. It'll be fine. Andy Dalton, he is still a backup quarterback at the end of the day. He looked good the 2 weeks before, and this is a much better matchup. Not prime time, not as much pressure. I think that Andy Dalton should be good, especially if he gets Jarvis Landry back, like you said. Any support that can come from, off the bench where they're injured, I think that's good news for any quarterback. And with Alvin Kamara, he should get back in the form this week. He didn't look the same last week. He wasn't catching enough balls. I don't think, for my taste.
Yeah, it was definitely a off week for him too. So if he bounces back, that's good news for Andy Dalton.
Yeah.
So yeah, I had Tom Brady at 13 here against Seattle. Justin Herbert at 14. Kirk Cousins at 15. Tough matchup in Buffalo. Followed by Aaron Rodgers at 16 against Dallas. Those are 3 relatively tough matchups. Those 3 guys. But out of all of them, I probably like Tom Brady to get it done against Seattle, even though that's a tough matchup as well.
Yeah.
But at least he has a couple weapons that he could depend on. What are you thinking between, these, 4 guys right here? Brady, Herbert, Cousins, and Rodgers.
I think they're ranked as they should be ranked. That's just me. Maybe Cousins over Herbert just because he does have weapons, and maybe Josh Allen doesn't play. So it might be a more, even game script. They won't be going down or anything. Not that I think they'd be going down. The Vikings are a good team. I might put Kirk Cousins over Justin Herbert, but Tom Brady, as we know, in international games, I think what is he averaging, like 300 yards and 3 touchdowns a game, something like that.
Ooh,
yeah. I think I saw that stat somewhere. I forget where it was, but yeah, he's actually very good overseas. Or down in Mexico City, they played. I remember that one time
trying to build that brand.
Yeah. But yeah, so overseas, I don't know if you remember that one game where they were like shooting laser pointers into Tom Brady's eyes at the line. Do you remember that? But yeah, so overseas or down in Mexico, wherever he's playing, he plays very well. We'll see how that goes this week. He does have the most weapons out of any of these guys between him and Justin Herbert, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers. So I think he's good at 13. Justin Herbert at 14, I think he's good. 15, Kirk Cousins. 16, Aaron Rodgers. I'm not even sure I'd put Aaron Rodgers over Jared Goff at this point. I think Aaron Rodgers might be a little bit high. And I'm not just talking up my Cowboys defense. I love my Cowboys defense, but Aaron Rodgers, he just hasn't been playing well. So I'm not sure.
Playing bad too, though.
Yeah. So, but with Aaron Rodgers, he has no weapons at this point. He doesn't even have Romeo Doubs. Now he's down to Christian Watson, who might have a concussion. Sammy Watkins doesn't do much. Aaron Jones, he's going to be limited. I mean,
Alan Lazard. Hello.
Oh yeah, Alan Lazard. I forgot about him. No, don't worry. I don't think there's a whole lot of upside for Aaron Rodgers in this matchup, and it's going to be cold. I mean, Aaron Rodgers just hasn't looked the same. I think that he might be a little bit lower than guys even like Daniel Jones could have a good day against a bad Houston defense. I'm not going to say that maybe
for Aaron Rodgers that it was too cold for Aaron Rodgers. This dude's a White Walker.
Oh yeah,
the dude is like he's a White Walker. He'll perform in the cold weather.
But considering the way he's been playing this season, I want to see how he does.
This is a very, very tough matchup.
Yeah, he doesn't look like Aaron Rodgers, and with nobody to throw to, I can see him getting frustrated really easily. So that's
if he threw 3 picks against the Lions last week, what's going to happen this week against Dallas?
I don't want to say anything, but maybe Trayvon Diggs is good for 1, 2. I don't know. I don't think Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he hasn't been playing well. I'm not sure. I don't think he's reckless with the ball yet. I think he's just trying to make plays. And a couple of those picks that he threw last week, I'm not sure if they happen. He's not going to have more multi-interception games like that,
especially in the
rest of the way. Yeah, that was uncharacteristic and kind of an outlier.
Jared Goff. So we have him at 17 against Chicago. I think he could be solid. Somewhat solid. Daniel Jones at 18 against Houston. Maybe this is a better matchup for Daniel Jones than not. I mean, Houston's defense has been really, really good against quarterbacks. for fantasy. They've been shutting guys down. But Daniel Jones, he does get a lot done on his, through his legs.
Yeah.
And Houston obviously is terrible against the run. So Daniel Jones might be a little bit sneaky this week. Then we had Derek Carr at 19, who's been playing terribly, and Jacoby Brissett at 20 in Miami.
Well,
and that's kind of how I'm looking at it.
The thing about Derek Carr is he wasn't playing terribly in the first half, but then the second half came around last week, and the offense shut down. Like, I remember I saw a post for Devontae Adams' stat line in the first half. 9 catches, 146, 2 touchdowns, right? It's like, oh, man, what's he going to do in the second half? He had 1 catch, 0 yards. It was just like, are you kidding? Like, what happened? Like, they completely lost it. I don't think they scored a point. It was just ridiculous. So, Derek Carr, you can trust him, but you can also not trust him. He's just so on and off. Devontae Adams was having a good game. The offense was looking good, and then suddenly it just shut down. I don't have much faith in Derek Carr at this point, especially for fantasy. Himself as a quarterback, if you're trying to start him, I wouldn't have high expectations.
No. All right, let's move on to running back rankings. I have Christian McCaffrey at number 1 against a Chargers defense giving up more than 6 yards a carry to running backs. That's most in the NFL. And just a reminder, if you forget, that before his bye, he had 18 carries and 8 catches and total 3 touchdowns before that bye week. Just wanted to remind you guys. Saquon at number 2 against Houston, another great matchup. The second worst defense against running backs. They're allowing 5.7 yards a carry. And I'm expecting the Giants to give Saquon a big workload in this one. He's had at least 20 carries in 4 of his last 5 games.
Yeah.
So 2 guys coming off by. You're happy to see it.
Yeah. Glad to have him back, too. After missing him in
Welcome
your lineup
back.
last week. Yeah.
Saquon.
I was
missing him. I was missing both these guys.
The Giants just have to follow the Titans game plan against Houston this week. Just give Saquon Barkley the ball enough, and he'll have 200 yards before you know it. So just let Saquon do his thing this week.
Seriously, man. Seriously. Welcome back. Austin Eckler at number 3. Tough overall matchup against San Francisco, but he's all Justin Herbert has right now. So he's averaging 10 catches over his last 3 games, which is absolutely insane for a running back. I was going to say tough overall matchup for the Titans this week against Denver, but their whole offense is Derrick Henry. So never mind. The Broncos are giving up more than 5 yards a carry to running backs this year. That's 4th most in the league. So he will likely continue to ball. I have him at number 4 this week.
Yeah. I wonder what the Titans are going to do for offense the rest of the season, especially as it gets colder. Yeah.
I wonder. At number 5, we're looking at Alvin Kamara, looking to rebound, like we talked about, after a tough week 9. This is another tough matchup for him this week against the Steelers, but my man was averaging 25 PPR fantasy points per game the 4 weeks before last week. So he'll be fine.
Yeah.
He'll be fine. He'll bounce back. Nick Chubb at 6 against Miami. Travis Etienne at 7 against Kansas City. Hopefully Etienne gets used a little bit more in the passing game this week, given how the Chiefs have given up the most receptions to running backs this year. Who knows if that will be the case with him. Only 9% target share for the year. He is running a ton of routes, so that's good, but we want to see those targets go up a little bit. We kind of want to see those targets correlate with the amount of routes that he's running. And that could happen. Hopefully we, at some point this year, with him being on the field more, we start to see more of that, Lawrence to Etienne connection that we saw, in college, through the air. But we'll see. Either way, you're starting him, as a solid RB1.
Yeah, I think he's destined for some passing work this week, just because, like we said, this game could get out of hand really easily with the Chiefs being, the Chiefs. So I like Travis Etienne. I think he's going to be the focal point of the offense, especially early in the game. If they want to have any shot at establishing a run game, they're probably going to be getting him the ball 2 out of 3 downs per, set of downs that they have. I would be surprised if he comes out, the first half with 20 touches, because that's what they're going to need.
That's what they're going to need for sure. Kenneth Walker, I have him at number 8 against Tampa. He's averaged 22 carries a game since taking over in week 6, and he's scored 6 touchdowns in those 4 games. So regardless of the matchup, and this isn't as bad of a matchup as it used to be. So start Kenneth Walker pretty easily.
Yeah.
And we have Josh Jacobs at number 9 after a couple of down weeks from him. Tough matchup against Indy, but there's a good chance the Raiders control this game. We talked about how bad Derek Carr was, but Indy has not looked good lately. Their offense hasn't looked good. We don't know how many points they're going to score. There's a good chance the Raiders can control this game. And after getting some of the 2-minute snaps a couple of weeks ago, Josh Jacobs did, we're starting to see Amir Abdullah start to creep back in, unfortunately. And he came in for a bunch of snaps over the last 2 weeks. So all that weighted opportunity that was going Josh Jacobs' way, in neutral game scripts, that kind of went away over the past 2 weeks. Hopefully this week he can kind of get right.
Yeah, this shouldn't be a very good game. I don't think there's two teams that are really just on the downswing right now. And with the Raiders offense, it's either been Devontae Adams doing the scoring or Josh Jacobs. In the past 2 weeks, Devontae Adams has been doing his thing. Josh Jacobs hasn't. I don't know
It's almost
why
like they can't figure out how to get both of them going at the same time.
I don't know why. It's like a pendulum. It's either Josh Jacobs or Devontae Adams. They can't have both for some reason. Like, why don't you just try using both? Josh Jacobs, obviously, when they run Josh Jacobs and they give him the workload that they gave him those 3 weeks where he had over 30 points in a row, like good things were happening. They were in those games, and then when they're just throwing the ball, they went up with a lead and blew the lead. I saw a stat somewhere. It was like the Raiders blew 3 17-point leads this season, after blowing 5 up until in their whole history up until this season. So it's just like really bad in Las Vegas. I don't know what it is. It might be Josh McDaniels. We'll see. But, I think Josh Jacobs still has it in him. Like, they'll give him the volume.
Definitely.
If they give him the volume, he'll do it. But it's just a matter of him getting that volume. It hasn't looked the same, like you said, with the weight opportunity. His targets have come down. That's a little worrying for me. He's starting to look more like that Josh Jacobs that we saw last season, where he didn't score less than 8, but he also didn't score more than 20. It was just like right in the middle.
Yeah. Hopefully he can get back to it. I think he can. I think they're willing to give him a huge workload.
Yeah.
And in this type of matchup, we can definitely see it happen. Dalvin Cook at number 10 against Buffalo. Dameon Pierce at 11 against the Giants. That's a good matchup. The Giants are bottom 3 in rush defense on a per carry basis.
Yeah.
They were surprisingly able to keep Kenneth Walker in check 2 weeks ago, but other than that, they have been bad. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Jamaal Williams against Chicago's vulnerable rushing defense as well. Williams had 24 carries last week. If Chicago ends up, this is kind of crazy to say, but if Chicago ends up putting up points early on the Lions, right? Williams would end up coming off the field in those situations if that happens. And it might not be DeAndre Swift coming on the field. It won't be Craig Reynolds either, because Craig Reynolds has been put on IR. It's Justin Jackson. Okay, so Justin Jackson is playing the DeAndre Swift role while DeAndre Swift is a little bit banged up. Okay, so we could see him on the field a little bit this week. But in general, as long as Swift is banged up, we have no idea how long he'll be as limited as he was the past 2 weeks. Only 10 snaps last week. You got to keep starting Jamaal.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. Even though the Bears have looked a lot better on defense, I'm not sure they run away with this one. I mean, not that the Lions are a very good team, but I think that there's a chance that this ends up being a closer game than we think, and Jamaal Williams could be involved the whole way through. I think he has a much more sustainable workload. It seems like it's Jamaal Williams as the 1A, and then the 2 guys that are rotating behind him are Justin Jackson and DeAndre Swift. And Justin Jackson actually got a little bit more work than Swift last week. I think Swift is going to continue to get healthy. His workload is going to continue moving up. But Jamaal Williams seems to be the guy that they're going to keep using until Swift is 100%. He's going to be on the field for most of the snaps. He's going to get most of the carries. And if they get to the goal line, remember, if he scores one touchdown, you got a second one coming that same day.
100%. Always. Guaranteed.
Yeah, that's the way it goes.
I have Tony Pollard here at 13 against Green Bay. We don't know if Zeke is playing or not. He has a brace on. He might play. This ranking is assuming he does not play. And I have Pollard here at 13. And this might be a little bit low for some. But the fact that he wasn't an every down back last week, he has to be a borderline RB1 for me rather than an RB1 with all those other guys ahead of him this week. Like, it's hard for me to bench the other guys that I mentioned already, besides Tony Pollard. Maybe you want to play him over Jamaal. Maybe. But I feel like Jamaal, if he ends up with those 2 touchdowns, those 2 goal line touchdowns, he's going to end up having a better week than Pollard. On the ground, this isn't a tough matchup. However, his touch threshold might be a little bit too low. Like, he might be limited to that to that respect. So that's my only concern with Pollard. Regardless, like, most likely Pollard will be in your lineup. We'll see. If Zeke, let me ask you this. I have 2 questions for you. The first question is, if Zeke is playing, where are you ranking Pollard compared to Zeke? Number 1. Number 2, if Zeke does not play, where are you ranking Pollard? Is this appropriate? Would you rank him above Jamaal, Dameon Pierce? Let me hear it.
All right. So if Zeke plays, I think that Tony Pollard is still ranked above Zeke, but he's not an RB1. He's not a high-end RB2. I think he's like low-end RB2 with RB2 potential, just because, Zeke, I don't think with a brace, we saw it last season, he's not going to be explosive, but he's going to get the touches anyway. He's going to be picking up 3 or 4 yards of carry just on first and second down. And that's the way it's going to be. It's just going to hurt Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's going to have probably, I'd say, the same volume as he would if he doesn't play. Maybe just a little bit less. So I think a low-end RB2 is, in his range of outcomes, especially since he's obviously much more explosive and he could do more with the ball in his hands.
The only difference might be the goal line carries, right?
Yeah.
Like if they get to the goal line and Zeke is playing, then Zeke might get 1 of 2 goal line carries rather than Tony Pollard getting all of them.
Yeah.
Right?
And even then, it seems like when Dak comes back, 2 things open up for you that they didn't have with Cooper Rush. One, it seems like they love to throw to tight ends on rollouts, by Dak. They run the play action, and that works well. They did that a lot when Dak plays. And then the other thing is Dak has his legs, where Cooper Rush didn't. And we saw that last week. The first touchdown drive, it was a read option to Dak, and he took it in for a touchdown with his legs. So it's a give and take. Now that Dak is back, maybe the goal line carries, they might technically go. Any running back goal line carries might go to Tony Pollard, but they might be distributed more, obviously, with Dak playing. And Malik Davis didn't look bad, the guy that they had, rotating in behind him. So we'll see how it goes. But like I said, low-end RB2 if Zeke does play. If he does play, I think that this is appropriate for Pollard, especially with the, like you said, the touch threshold being like that 14, 15 touch range.
Mm-hmm.
Jamaal Williams is a safer play. Tony Pollard's a higher upside play. But if you're in a spot where you need a win, I might start Jamaal Williams this week. Tony Pollard, it could go either way for him, where we know Jamaal Williams is going to get his touches.
I'm with you. All right. At number 14, we have Miles Sanders against Washington. Sanders has been surprisingly steady, and I have him here as a high in RB2, and I'm playing him over Jonathan Taylor, who I have at 15, who did practice on Wednesday, which is, he'll, my assumption is that he's going to play. New head coach, still a not so good offensive line. We'll see how effective he can be if he does suit up against, this week against the Raiders. The Raiders are a tough matchup on the ground on a per carry basis, but they've allowed a ton of fantasy points to running backs.
Yeah.
If you have both these guys this week, Jonathan Taylor, let's say Jonathan Taylor gets a full practice in on Friday, who are you starting? Sanders or Taylor?
I would have to start Taylor just because we know what Jonathan Taylor can do. There's nobody else doing anything on that Colts offense. Miles Sanders, he has a chance of having his touchdowns vultured by A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devonta Smith. Even the running backs behind him, Kenneth Gainwell, Jalen Hurts on the ground. I think that Jonathan Taylor is the safer play for me. I get it, though. It feels weird having Miles Sanders above Jonathan Taylor, but the way he's been playing, that's the way it's going to be. But I'm holding out hope for Jonathan Taylor. I think he can do it. He can get back to at least much better form than he's had this season.
There is a under-the-radar move the Colts can make right now for their offense to become much better. And that's to bring in Nick Foles.
Oh.
Bring in Nick Foles.
They could.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't want to play Matt Ryan? Okay. Ellinger, if he continues to struggle, bring in Nick Foles. Bring in the Super Bowl winning quarterback.
Yeah. And just see what kind of spark you can get.
And see what happens, you never know. And maybe Nick Foles will start dumping it down to running backs, You never know. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to fix anything.
The problem in Indianapolis is their offensive line sucks.
Yeah.
That's which is weird to think because Quentin Nelson's there, but it's just, it hasn't been playing well at all. Where the past 2 seasons, it's been actually, pretty good.
Well, one thing that hopefully Jeff Saturday brings in is that he's an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Maybe he understands that, like, hey, listen, like, one way to overcome a bad offensive line is instead of running the ball like 20 times a game, you check it down like 6-7 times a game to complement that.
Yeah.
Right. And if you have Jonathan Taylor, that's what you're hoping for. Paris Campbell, he can play that role, right? They have a few guys that can do that sort of thing, and they just have to get creative with it. Right. So we'll see what they end up doing, but the vibes are not good around Indy right now. But we'll see what they do in their first game back. Remember, the vibes were not good in Carolina either, and they were able to have a couple good games. So you never know.
Maybe the offensive line is just tired of blocking for washed up 1-year rental quarterbacks. Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, now Matt Ryan. They're just like, all right, we're done. Let's get us an actual quarterback, and then we'll play.
Yeah,
maybe.
Very possible. Very possible. I have Leonard Fournette at 16, and this might be a little bit low, but Seattle's run defense has been gouged early on in the year, but over the last 4 weeks, they've allowed only 3 yards of carry to running backs, which is second best in the NFL during that span. And then you add the inefficiencies from Fournette on top of that, and this offense not playing as well, I don't know how much run Rachaad White is going to get in this game, but I'm just not sure this is a get right spot for this Bucs offense in general.
No. The Seahawks have looked so much better, and they are at this point so much better than the Bucs right now. I think this is a much harder matchup than I thought it was going to be for the Bucs. When they released a schedule and they said that they were sending Seattle and Tampa Bay overseas, I was like, man, they don't ever give them any good games. I was like, Tampa Bay is going to run all over the Seahawks. And now it's looking like it might be the other way around. The way the Seattle's defense is playing, I don't expect Leonard Fournette, have much upside this week. He might get volume, but I don't think he's going to have much upside. And the volume has been hard to come by for him the past few weeks. I know I'm still in on Leonard Fournette. I think he has it in him. We've seen him do his thing when he's on the Buccaneers. I think these past few weeks have been very uncharacteristic. I think they're going to be an outlier, but if it keeps happening, it's starting to look more like a trend than just like, a bad patch. But we'll see.
Are you starting him over Miles Sanders?
I think I would. That's
okay.
Just
so
me.
You would go Jamaal Williams at 12, Tony Pollard at 13, Leonard Fournette at 14, Jonathan Taylor at 15. And then Miles Sanders at 16.
I think that's about what I would have.
Yeah. Got it. Cordell Patterson, I have him at 17. Carolina's defense didn't look good last week. Like I mentioned, we talked about them a little bit earlier. I think he's going to get a little bit of a larger role tonight compared to 4 days ago. And I can see Tyler Algier also, obviously mixing in there. Caleb Huntley might get phased out a little bit. So I have him at 17. I think it's a solid place to put him. James Conner at 18. I'm fine starting him as an RB2. 71% of snaps last week, 70% route participation, caught all 5 of his targets last week. I think it's a good sign for him. This is a little bit of a sigh of relief if you have James Conner, the fact that he's actually playing and on the field and got his role back.
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of what you were hoping for. Nothing too crazy, but in terms of expectation, you just like, is he on the field? Is he playing all the snaps? All right. I think we're okay.
You're done holding your breath with James Conner. You see that he's going to get the touches if he plays. And it looks like that's the way it's going to be. I think the offense just has to be a little bit better. I hope Kyler Murray can play. I don't personally think he's going to miss. I could see him playing through it. That kind of limits the upside of the offense overall. But if that's the case, they might be turning more to the run game with James Conner, and that could be good news for him. So we'll see how it goes. It's kind of a mystery going into this game, and the Rams are like a middle of the pack matchup in terms of their defense, I think. So I'm not, too hopeful of a huge upside for James Conner, but I think he's going to have a much better week than he had last week if, some of the production starts to catch up to the usage that he had.
And just real quick on the Fournette, and people are probably wondering why I'm talking about it. There was a situation in this past game with the Bucs where Fournette was off the field, right? Especially in that first half, right? That first half, it was Rachaad White on the field, not Fournette, and apparently he was frustrated with that situation. And this is a situation where it's possible. And Bucs beat reporter, forgot which one it was, but one of them said that it's possible that Rachaad White ends up taking over at some point this year if Fournette continues to struggle. So that's his opinion as a beat reporter.
Yeah.
But it's something to kind of keep an eye on. And another indication of don't drop Rachaad White. Pretty much.
Yeah. Pick him up if you don't have him already. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Aaron Jones got him at number 19 here against Dallas. He did practice on Wednesday, like I mentioned. He might not get his full workload. His workload has been up and down all year. So I moved him down a bit, to RB19 this week because of that. He's been up and down all week, all year. AJ Dillon has gotten touches here and there. And now he's a little bit banged up. So I'm not betting on him to have, a big game this week.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. Like you said, with him being a little bit banged up, I think AJ Dillon could actually come through a little bit this week. I think it's going to look better for AJ Dillon than Aaron Jones this week. I wouldn't be surprised if Aaron Jones is outproduced by AJ Dillon just because he is banged up. We'll see how it goes though. Dallas' defense is pretty tough, although they've been a little bit softer against the run. Those have been the guys that have been scoring the points against them recently. So we'll see how it goes. I like Aaron Jones a little bit, but not as much as AJ Dillon this week. I think that AJ Dillon, we have him at 30. I might move him up a little bit more than that. He might be a low end RB2 for me this week.
I like David Montgomery at RB20. against Detroit this week. His snaps and usage went way up last week. 70% of snaps, 45% of rushing share, depending on if the Bears are in this game. And by the way, it wasn't. This is including Justin Fields. This is not just between him and Khalil Herbert. So you're like, oh, Khalil Herbert had 55%. No, he had less than that. He had about 35% of the rushing share. But, depending on if the Bears are in this game the entire time, depending on if they're up the entire time, it could change how these guys are being used and what their touch distribution looks like, right? If the Bears are up or in a neutral game script, then expect Khalil Herbert to be a lot more involved, right? Expect their carries to be somewhat similar. And I would expect both of them to rack up some carries in this game if that were to be the case. And so I have Herbert down at RB26 on the week, and Montgomery's here at RB20. Are you expecting? What are you expecting out of this Bears backfield? Like, are you expecting it to be a close share, or do you expect Montgomery to kind of lead this backfield once again?
I think it'll be a close share. The Bears' identity is still the run game, even though Justin Fields has looked really good. That's still what they like to do. A lot of the time, David Montgomery, he got most of the touches last week, but I think that the hot hand approach is going to be, in full swing this week. It's not going to result. I'm not saying it's going to have Khalil Herbert getting all the touches, outpacing David Montgomery by a decent amount. I think it's going to be a nice split down the middle this week. I think both of them have the potential to be an RB2. I think neither of them are going to finish as an RB1. Even though it's a decent matchup against Detroit, I don't have high hopes for either of them. I think that I feel like Khalil Herbert could be the guy this week. That's just me. Obviously, it's been back and forth both times. I mean, the whole season, between David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert. But, with Justin Fields playing the way he's playing, David Montgomery might be the early down guy, and they might have Khalil Herbert in for those, long third down situations. That's where he can make a lot of money. We saw him do that against the Patriots on that screenplay. I don't think it was supposed to be a touchdown, but it ended up being a touchdown. Justin Fields sidearmed it. They have Khalil Herbert in on those plays where you have the potential to gain chunk yardage. I think that he can make money more than David Montgomery this week.
We touched on Antonio Gibson's role. I have him here at number 21 with J.D. McKissic hurt. Getting all the way down, it's funny because I had Antonio Gibson, ranked so low this offseason, and now with McKissic hurt, I like him a lot. He's getting all the passing down work. He's missing in on early downs. That role on its own is RB2 level, right? And he's being targeted out of the backfield as well. Almost 30% target share per route run for the year for a running back. That's elite.
Yeah.
So, if he continues to run those routes, he's going to be a pretty good asset down the stretch, depending on how severe J.D. McKissic's injury is. All right, so keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Moving forward. And, Philly is likely going to be a negative game script for Washington. So I'm expecting Gibson to rack up some targets in this game.
Well, yeah, one thing about, Washington playing Philadelphia. Last time it wasn't very close, but, Washington, they're a scrappy team. They're not that bad. They'll be in the game. They gave Minnesota a run for their money, up until the last couple minutes before the Vikings eventually took the lead and won the game. But they're not a bad team. They can do it, especially with Taylor Heineke at quarterback. I like the upside that the offense has. I think that Antonio Gibson, he's pretty much the guy in the backfield now, even though I thought that, and I know you weren't high on him either. I thought that he was kind of going to be phased out with this coaching staff. It hasn't been the case. I think they've kind of been forced to go to him, but they're realizing now that, he's actually a good piece. And we said that he's making a lot of money in the passing game, much more than the run game. The run game, early down work, has been going to Brian Robinson, but he hasn't done anything to earn himself more time on the field. I think that Antonio Gibson is the guy, like you said, and he's going to have pretty good upside in a matchup that you said it's probably going to be a negative game script. I don't think they're going to be completely out of it at any point in the game, though, which could actually help.
He's always been the best running back in this backfield, since, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. It's been since he's been drafted, he's been their best running back. They're finally, hopefully, realizing it now. But even Brian Robinson taking touches away doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, to be honest with you.
Right.
Devin Singletary, I have him here at number 22 against Minnesota. Very tough matchup on the ground, but good offense, right? If Josh Allen plays. If Josh Allen doesn't play, and the lean on the ground game, still not great for Devin Singletary for me. I don't love this for him this week, personally. But we'll see. I'd rather Josh Allen play for Devin Singletary.
Well, yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I don't think them depending on the ground game is going to be a great formula for them if they were without Josh Allen, personally.
No. I mean, maybe because Dalvin Cook will be in town, James Cook will do his thing. But
Ooh,
I don't think
like
that's
that.
going to be the case. Yeah.
Brother versus brother.
Yeah.
You can start Deontay Foreman tonight, but keep in mind, like I said earlier, that Chuba Hubbard will likely be back after getting a couple full practices in. And if the Panthers go down, we probably won't see Foreman on the field a ton. Even without Chuba last week, Hubbard only played. I'm sorry, even without Chuba last
Hubbard,
week.
Yeah.
What did we say? Chuba Hubba Hubba. I forgot what we.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, Chuba Hubba Hubba.
Yeah. Without Chuba last week, Foreman only played on 43% of snaps in a negative game script last week. So that tells you what you need to know if that happens tonight. And then you have Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert. I have them here at 24 and 25. Their work split down the middle last week. I have Wilson, with a slight edge, given he looked better than Mostert did last week. And this was a 50-50 in Wilson's first game with the Dolphins after being with the team for only a few days. So that tells you what you need to know about this backfield. So I think I'm starting Wilson over Mostert, but most likely you don't have both. And, I think both these guys are, borderline RB2s and flex plays this week.
They're ranked as such. So they're split. Their carries and touches were split down the middle last week. And now you could draw a line right down the middle and they'll be in the same spot.
Pretty much. And this is a solid matchup on the ground for the Dolphins. I think, Cleveland's been giving up a ton of rushing yards on a per carry basis. So I kind of like this matchup for them, even if it's split.
Yeah. I don't think, like you could say Jeff Wilson came in and looked good after having only a couple days to learn the playbook, but I don't think there was much learning the playbook really to do.
True.
There might have been a few wrinkles that he had to pick up, but it didn't surprise me at all to see him do what he did last week because he's so familiar with the scheme and with Mike McDaniel. I think they were happy to have him in there. It didn't take long, and now they have him. I don't think they're going to start, just hammering Jeff Wilson and leaving Raheem Mostert on the sideline, but Jeff Wilson could get a couple more touches. Like I said, it could go either way each week. But as long as Jeff Wilson's playing well, I don't think, like I said, his value is up right now. I would sell him. That's just me. But, he looks good, and it's nice to have another piece that's doing much better than Chase Edmonds was in this offense.
Jeff Wilson, is a running back that, you picked up on waivers potentially after dropping him, and now you might have an RB2 moving forward if his role increases.
Yeah.
We'll see. Khalil Herbert at 26. We talked about him a little bit this week. This is a really good matchup. It's possible that he's very low in the rankings. Maybe he should be a little higher. DeAndre Swift, I have him here at 27. Listen, like DeAndre Swift, we have no idea what his workload is going to look like. He had 10 snaps last week. I'd rather move Khalil Herbert up than DeAndre Swift. I might move DeAndre Swift down. I don't know what to expect from him.
Would you put DeAndre Swift below Najee Harris? I don't know if I'd do that. I don't know if I'd do that.
I think DeAndre Swift has more upside, obviously, but at least Najee Harris has been getting you 10 points in a PPR league. DeAndre Swift can potentially give you just a handful of points. He has to score a touchdown for him to do his thing.
Yeah, and he, like I said, for me, I've seen him play. He scored 2 weeks ago. He came this close. He came a yard away from scoring last week on that nice catch that we talked about. So I think that the upside is there. Even though he's not getting a lot of touches, they've been pretty high quality touches that he's getting.
And you never know with Najee Harris, he might be benched this week, right? Mike Tomlin, has talked about it, with Jaylen Warren. There's been a lot of hype around Jaylen Warren this week, and we've been talking about Jaylen Warren for several weeks now. It's possible that time has come out of the bye. We have no idea if that's going to be the case. There's been a lot of rumors around that potentially happening. However, for now, Najee Harris is going to be in my rankings here, in the top 30, not Jaylen Warren. Not comfortable starting Jaylen Warren just yet, unless you're desperate and you're shot in the dark type of play.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm okay starting Najee here. He moved up a little bit because he's being involved in the passing game in a PPR league. He could potentially just give you a decent floor, not high, decent, around a 10-point PPR floor over the past couple weeks.
That's what it is. He hasn't scored more than 14 points in a game, but he also hasn't scored less than 6. So that's what you're getting. I mean,
pretty much.
You want to talk about a decent floor? That's just like a mediocre floor. It's if you have nothing else left, nobody else to play. At this point, if you have Najee Harris, I'd start somebody with upside like DeAndre Swift over him. Maybe even Tyler Algier at this point. Because
I can see starting Tyler Algier over Najee Harris. I can see that.
Yeah, he just doesn't have the upside at all. Even when he scores, he doesn't get enough yardage or receptions to make it so that he can have a higher scoring game. If he scores a touchdown, he's like, all right, I got my 10 points. I'm done for today. That's it.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Let's move Tyler Algier up above Najee. AJ Dillon, I have him here at 30. I just, even with Aaron Jones a little bit banged up, I still don't trust AJ Dillon that much. Like, he hasn't been involved this year. He hasn't done much against Dallas. I don't know. Like, what are your expectations out of AJ Dillon this week?
I think AJ Dillon's actually going to be better than Aaron Jones this week, just because Aaron Jones is a little banged up. AJ Dillon,
if he's better than Aaron Jones, does that mean that he's going to have a good game?
I think that he's going to have a good game. And that's just me, because the Cowboys' run defense has been pretty bad. The Cowboys historically have not been able to put away the Packers in any type of game. I don't think it's going to be a close game at the end of the day, but I think it could be competitive, at least in the first half. And I think that AJ Dillon could he could do some work on the ground against Dallas, even though it is a good Cowboys defense. He's been super quiet the past few weeks. I could totally see him having a game just to throw people off. With Aaron Jones having the injury, they could be like, all right, well, is AJ Dillon still a handcuff? Could he earn more usage going forward? I could see him having that type of performance. If he scores, I think he could rush for 60 yards and score. I think he could do that. And that would be enough to make him, seem fantasy relevant again. I like AJ Dillon this week. I know we have Aaron Jones here at 19 and AJ Dillon at 30. I would actually put AJ Dillon over Aaron Jones in the grand scheme of things. I'm not sure where. I don't think I'd put AJ Dillon at 19. Maybe I'd put him, over Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert under Deontay Foreman, but I like AJ Dillon this week, even though it doesn't look good.
Yeah, no, I hear that. I'm only playing AJ Dillon if Aaron Jones is banged up. I mean, or if he misses this game.
Right.
Otherwise, I'm not sure how much confidence I have in him, to be honest. If this Green Bay Packers offense was better, if they weren't going up against a tough defense, I concede, but I'm not sure if I would. Now, let me ask you this question. We have, before we wrap up here, Adam in the comments is asking, can't believe I have to ask this one, but Jonathan Taylor or Cordell Patterson in a non-PPR league have to make a decision by tonight, and there's no other options on waivers, and my other running backs are on bye. So with this question, let's say Jonathan Taylor gets a full practice in today.
Yeah.
If Jonathan Taylor gets a full practice in today, I'll wait, and I'll start Jonathan Taylor this week on Sunday, and I'll bench Patterson. If Jonathan Taylor gets another limited practice in today, there's no guarantee that he plays, right? So if that's the case, then I'll play Patterson tonight. Yep. That's how I'm going to handle this situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. In no other circumstance, like you said, unless Jonathan Taylor practices today, if he practices, I don't think it has to be a full practice for me to be comfortable, starting Jonathan Taylor this weekend. As long as he practices, we're fine. I don't see a situation where he doesn't. You can start Jonathan Taylor. Cordell Patterson is a much safer bet, though.
I see. My point is this: I don't know if Jonathan Taylor will actually play this week, even if he gets a limited practice today. That's my concern. If I knew Taylor was playing this weekend, then I would play him, right? But if Jonathan Taylor's out this weekend, he's screwed because he could have played Patterson on Thursday night.
Yeah.
And since Jonathan Taylor is already on shaky ground and Patterson has a decent matchup and he's back, me personally, I'm going to play Patterson tonight. If Taylor is limited today.
I guess it's true. Yeah. You just kind of talked me out of it.
I just don't want to be screwed.
Oh yeah.
Especially if I had a decent option. If I had a decent option that could have went on Thursday night, I have to make that decision,
Yeah.
And you never know. Patterson, if you ask me, hey, who's going to have a better game this week, Patterson or Taylor? I'm like, well, it could be Patterson. I wouldn't.
The way they've been playing,
it could happen.
Yeah, I think Cordell Patterson. He's a much safer play. And if you need him to win, if you need to win this week and you can't afford having a donut, nobody can afford having a donut, whether they want to need a win or not. But it's just that's
Patterson. Yeah, that's the thing. All right. That's going to do it for this episode, guys. Appreciate you listening to the podcast every single day, Monday through Friday, putting on the podcast every single weekday. We appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow at noon Eastern time. We'll be going over wide receiver rankings and our tight end rankings and going over injuries and all that kind of stuff going into the weekend. All right. Take it easy, guys. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.